Hello and welcome to another episode of the Literally What podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Friedel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I am so excited. We have a lot of fun stuff to get into. And so without any further ado, let's get into some hot gossip, hot takes, stories, and advice that will have you saying literally what? So before we jump into all the good stuff, I want to just give a quick thank you to everyone who reached out to me when my first episode came out last week. Your guys' love and support means seriously so much to me. This was just something so fun for me to do, and I am so happy that all of you guys loved it so much, and I cannot wait to continue doing this for you guys. And I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. As always, make sure you are following the Instagram, have subscribed to the YouTube channel. I do upload all of my podcasts. Well, I guess this will be my second one, up on the YouTube channel. And those are just literally with 2 Y's, what with 3 T's. I also am going to be answering some of your guys' advice questions that you sent in to the email. They are so funny. Whoever wrote those in, I'm obsessed. I cannot wait to read them and answer. If you want your advice read on the podcast, make sure you write into literallywhat916@gmail.com. I'll have that up on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, and it will be in the show notes on the Spotify description. So yes, this is a Thursday upload. This is a little bit earlier because this weekend I am going to one of my very best friends' plural weddings. So one of them is my fiance's best friend. We all went to high school with him, and then his fiance, who is the sweetest little thing. And we are going to their wedding this weekend, and I'm so excited. I love a good weekend getaway. I love a good wedding. I love when 2 couples come together. I'm just a romantic, and I always will be. So I wanted to get this up for you guys before I head off onto my little weekend adventure. So now we can hop into the stories I have for this week. There were so many stories I wanted to talk about, and it was so hard kind of deciding because I did want to stick with 3 stories. So hopefully these are somewhat entertaining. There was so much that happened this past week, and I tried to pick some stories that you might not have heard of or, weren't overly talked about. So we'll see. But the first thing is the Mean Girls stars. They were reunited. They were in LA. A lot of people thought that they were filming a new Mean Girls movie, but it turns out that they were just filming a Pepsi commercial together, and it is inspired by the 2004 Mean Girls movie. When I first saw this article, though, I was like, oh my gosh, are they filming another Mean Girls? But it's just a commercial. Still, I will take it over nothing because Mean Girls is one of my absolute favorite movies, as I'm sure it is one of most of y'all's favorite movies out there. So yeah, I guess everyone would have assumed it was a new movie because it was like the Mean Girls cast is finally reunited. However, Regina George was not seen, so I think it's just the 3 other girls. But yeah, I guess they're filming a Pepsi commercial, and I'm assuming it's for, the 2024 Super Bowl in February. So it said that all 3 of them were in Mean Girls-esque outfits. Lindsay Lohan was wearing a black button-down and trousers, and she was carrying a pouch that read Plastics Club Member. So super cute. I cannot wait to see this commercial. I think it's gonna be so cute. I love the Super Bowl commercials. When I was in college, we had an assignment where we had to watch the Super Bowl and watch the commercials, and then write down our favorite commercials for different categories, and then we would watch them in class, and it was so much fun. I love watching the Super Bowl commercials. All right, next story I want to talk about. I wanted to bring this up because since I'm starting my podcast in today's world, there's a lot of news stories that I've been following, but I obviously haven't been able to talk about because this is only my second podcast episode, but this is about Savannah Chrisley, and she decided to leave the show Special Forces. So if you guys don't know who Savannah Chrisley is, the Chrisley family, they had a reality show years ago. I think they still were doing the show a few years ago. And I grew up watching the show. I loved them. They lived in Atlanta for a while. We knew where their neighborhood was, and so I loved watching them. I was obsessed. And then recently, the parents were arrested and now they're in jail because of, I think it was tax fraud. And it's so, so, so sad because now Savannah, the 26-year-old daughter, is in charge of the two youngest kids, Chloe and Grayson. It's just a really sad story. And anyway, so she's always, Savannah Chrisley is always in the news because she was taking on the guardianship of her two siblings, and she was on the show Special Forces, and then on October 9th she decided to quit. And she basically was just saying how she was proud of herself for taking that step to quit, just because she does have obviously such big responsibilities back at home. So it was just saying that despite being one of the early frontrunners on season 2 of Fox's Special Forces, the reality star made the surprising decision to leave the competition, but she doesn't feel like a quitter, because she wanted to focus on raising her brother Grayson. He's 17, and then her niece Chloe is 10. Because both her parents are still serving in prison. I just feel for her because I cannot imagine having both my parents go to jail and having to raise two younger siblings. That's just so much pressure that I don't think any 26-year-old would expect to have. But yeah, I think I feel for her, and I just can't imagine what she's going through. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting because I knew she was on Special Forces on the first episode last week. I think I brought it up, and then I guess she decided to leave just because she has too much going on at home, obviously. But anyway, thoughts and prayers are always out to the Chrisley family. I cannot imagine. I think the parents, one's in jail maybe for 7 years. I think Julie's in jail for 7 and Todd is in jail for 12, maybe. Crazy to me. Crazy. Alrighty, next and last story to kind of brighten things up. But Gigi Hadid, who's a model, 28, is rumored to have been hanging out, dating. We don't really know. Bradley Cooper, who is 48. These super big age differences are just so crazy to me. But apparently they've been spotted together in New York City, and they are said to just be having fun. A source tells People that they're just getting to know each other but are keeping things casual. Gigi Hadid reveals that she has had sort of a crush on Bradley Cooper for a while and might be open to exploring more than a friendship. Honestly, I mean, good for her dating Bradley Cooper, I guess. I just think the age differences to me are so weird. Like, it's obviously not gonna last. I guess if they're just having fun, like, good for them. It's just always funny to see different celebrity couple pairings. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, and I feel like there's just been so many random celebrity couples that have been coming out in the past few months, and I don't know, it's just kind of funny to me because I feel like at some point you kind of not run out of celebrities to date, but I feel like as a celebrity you also want to date and be around people who kind of understand the world you're in. So I don't know, I thought that was interesting. But those are my 3 stories I decided to pick. I didn't want to get into anything, that was too over talked about or anything like that. But I do want to get into some of my rant segment with you guys because I have a couple things to rant about. Not necessarily rant about, but just kind of talk about. The first one you've probably seen is this TikTok trend that is going around, and it's basically you use the old person filter and then on the screen you write some kind of like text, like something that you grew up with. So like, do you know what Webkins are? Do you remember Webkins? Do you remember Kik? Do you remember like different things that people like that are my age like grew up with? And or maybe it's them saying like what's Webkins or what, I forget what it is exactly, but and then it's like the person like them and then it changing to an old face and back to regular and old and regular. And it's so crazy to me that there's so many things that people are just never going to really know about, especially kids nowadays, are never going to understand certain things that we had when we were growing up. And it upsets me because I don't feel old. Like, I'm 23. I don't necessarily feel that old, but now seeing all of these trends coming out, like talking about how things that we grew up with are now considered old and kids nowadays don't really know what they are. It's kind of like, well, now I am old because now I'm a TikTok trend and people have no idea what these things are. So I thought that was so crazy. And it made me think, like, if I ever have kids, like, I'm definitely going to make sure that they watch the shows that I grew up watching and had some of the toys that I had. And I don't know, it's crazy to think about what kids nowadays are going to be like looking at in a few years. Like, you know what I mean? I just feel like it's crazy that there's so many different things that kids aren't going to know. And I guess Webkinz sooner or later is not even going to be a TikTok trend anymore. At least it's still a TikTok trend, but soon it's going to be forgotten and never talked about. I'm trying to think what some of the other things were. Like, oh, I remember I was with my younger cousin and I think I was showing her some Disney Channel characters and she had no idea who they were. And I wanted to, like, bash my head against the wall because, like, how do you not know these things? Because and it's hard because you grow up with them and so they're so iconic to you and play such a big important role in your life. And nostalgia to me is a feeling that I have a love-hate relationship with because I love looking back at certain things, but it also just gives me, like, the most saddest feeling in the world. I don't know. I love nostalgia, but I also hate it at the same time. Like, looking back at Christmas when I was younger, looking back at, you know, when kids would just play outside all the time, or, you know, it's just kind of, it's a sad feeling. It's also a good feeling. It's a very, I think it's an uncomfortable feeling, nostalgia. And I don't know. I guess that's my rant about that, is kids aren't really going to understand anything that we had, and it's just frustrating to me. And then I wanted to bring up, I saw this video on TikTok. Of course, I literally see everything on TikTok, that apparently 95% of people believe that they are self-aware. Okay? 95%. That's like majority, every one of you watching and listening to this podcast. Only about 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. Okay? That is crazy to me. I like to think I'm a pretty self-aware person, but statistically, I'm just not. Unfortunately, I'm not a self-aware person. And you probably, if you're listening or watching to this, are not either. But don't worry, I got your back, because I looked up what we can do to help ourselves with our self-awareness, because I think it's very important for us to be self-aware. So basically, there's two different types of self-awareness, and I'm not going to get sciencey. I'm not going to bore you guys to death. I just think this is important for us to understand about ourselves and be, you know, self-aware. So there's internal self-awareness and there is external self-awareness. So when we think of internal self-awareness, that's more so like what our fears are, what triggers us, what we can work on internally with ourselves and just in our lives in general. And then when we get into the external awareness, that's more so, it was saying that's what people sometimes don't necessarily think about, because when they think of self-awareness, they mainly focus on themselves. And so when we think about external self-awareness, that's when we get into how are we with relationships with other people? How are we when we're with our friends, when we're with our family, with our coworkers, with our boyfriends, girlfriends, fiancés, hi fiancé, and how people view us, because, you know, I know for myself, I can sometimes be a different person when I'm around certain people compared to who I am on the inside. And so just kind of being self-aware of how we're portraying ourselves to people around us is super important. And the reason we want to be self-aware, and this is obviously do your own research because I'm not a doctor, I don't really know what I'm talking about all the time, but we want to be self-aware in general, just because it's going to make us a better person. It's going to make us do better in our relationships, do better in our jobs. It said that people who are self-aware get job promotions more often, and these are all statistics, but it's just, you just become a better version of yourself when you are more self-aware. And I just thought that was super, super, super interesting. Just because I think it's something that we might not necessarily think about. So those are my two little rant topics for you guys. So anyway, I want to dive a little bit into the TV recaps from this week. I did not watch The Golden Bachelor because that is on tonight, and obviously I am packing and getting out of town for the weekend tonight, so I didn't have time to watch it. I still recommend everyone watch it because it is the cutest show in the whole entire world. But first I want to talk about Dancing with the Stars, because I don't know what it was this week, but the judges were on something this week. It was crazy. So it was Motown night. I was obsessed with all the dances, all the costumes, all the songs. I thought all the dancers did really, really, really well, but when it came to the judges, I don't know what was going on with them, because they would say one thing to the contestant and the score would reflect the complete 360 of what they said. It was very, very odd. One of the contestants, the judges had pretty good comments, and then when they gave out the scores, I think it was like 2 7s and 2 5s. It was just really, really weird. And then they would tell another contestant that, you know, they didn't miss a step and blah, 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 and then they would give them 6s. It was just very, very weird. Other than the judges' scores, I thought it was such a good episode. They all did really, really, really amazing. Ariana, I love her. She killed her dance. Barry Williams, I would say, compared to like most of the guys besides Jason, he's like obviously I think gonna win the mirror ball, but Barry Williams, honestly, he I think is the guy on the show with the most actual like coordination and ability to dance. Even though he is, I think, the oldest contestant on the show this season, he's still like just killing and crushing, and oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with him. I'm trying to think. I just loved all the dances, and they were all just so good. You should definitely watch. Next week is Disney night, which is my personal favorite night. So I will definitely be watching that because I'm obsessed with Disney, as we all know. Which leads me into my random little fact that I did work for Disney, and I interned there for... It was supposed to be 3 months. I was going to extend it to 6 months, and then COVID, lovely, lovely COVID happened, and it got cut short. So I was there for 2.5 months, and I want to bring this all into my little advice segment. We'll get into the advice after this, but what I want to tell all of you guys out there is, if you feel kind of stuck, if you feel kind of just like down, if you just feel like you don't really know where your life's going, you don't really know what to do, I highly, 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 highly recommend just getting up and just going somewhere for a couple months, whatever that may be. If it's studying abroad, if it's doing an internship like I did, if it's going to visit a family member for a month or so, just to get up and out and be somewhere different than where you're feeling stuck. I think when I was growing up and in college, I just felt kind of like, I don't know, I was very like insecure. I was very like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I was struggling, and I still struggle to this day, but it was always kind of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my next step is going to be. I don't know. I didn't have the confidence in myself to be able to go out and do something on my own. I struggled a lot with independence and, you know, am I ever going to be able to be independent and do things on my own kind of thing, because I do struggle with anxiety, as we all know. And so I decided to sign up for this Disney internship program. I did not think I was going to get accepted because it was very difficult to get into. And somehow I made it past like all of the interviews. I did the phone interview and I got an email that I got into the program. And it was crazy. I did not expect that to happen at all. I literally just did it randomly just to do it because I just needed to kind of get out of the space I was in. And I was so nervous. I do not like change. Don't like anything like that. I like staying in my comfort zone. And I don't know what came over me to do this, but I'm glad it happened. And so I went down there and I was in Florida, and you're kind of just like, you find roommates, you move into this apartment, and then you work at Disney. And it was probably like the best couple months of my whole entire life. And it was, I think it was just, it meant so much to me because when I came back from that a couple months later, I felt so confident in myself, and it really, really, really boosted my confidence. Because I was down there literally doing everything by myself. I had my roommates and I had a structure, I had my job, but I was in a completely different state. I was hours away from my family and friends and everything I knew. I didn't know any single person down there. And I went down there. I loved it. I made so many friends. I made the best memories. It was one of the best experiences of my whole entire life. And if I didn't push myself, I wouldn't have gone down there, and I wouldn't have the confidence that I have today. And so that's a whole long speech of me basically just telling everyone just to try to do something out of your comfort zone, even if you don't like it. And I hate going out of my comfort zone. I never really do. I'm a lot better at it nowadays. But I think taking that step and moving down to Florida, even if it was for a little bit, and I think it was just that little bit I needed, just really boosted my confidence. And yeah, that's all I really have to say for that. So I hope you enjoyed my little spiel about all of that. But yeah, if you are just kind of feeling stuck, I feel like a lot of us just, life is so confusing and there's so many different opportunities. There's so many different options. It's like, life is honestly crazy. But just kind of getting out of wherever you are and trying something different and doing it independently, I think is super, super, super important. And I'm so glad I did it for myself. I am a homebody. I am, I love being around my comfort people and my comfort places. And I say that as I'm literally moving down to Florida, but I think it's all about the experiences that you create for yourself, and it's super important to take care of yourself and put yourself out there and give yourself the best experience that you can in life. So anyway, that's all the sappiness for today. Now let's get into some little advice questions that you all wrote in. Thank you if you did write in. I did only pick 2 because I don't want to bore you guys with a super, super long episode. And I do have a lot of packing and stuff to do tonight, and I still have to edit this and upload. So this might be a shorter podcast, but I promise next week I will make up for it. But we have 2 really funny advice segment little stories that I'm gonna try to help you guys out with. All right, so let's get into the first one. Dear Literally What Podcast, I'm so excited for this advice segment and can see myself writing into this often, LOL. So to preface, I like keeping myself busy and I'm always on the go. Recently, I've gotten to a point where I've been feeling kind of drained and feeling like I have no time to myself, but I've committed to so many things and I don't want to let anyone down. So part of me just wants to not change anything and keep doing what I've been doing. Plus, I wouldn't know what to give up and what to keep, if that makes sense. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Sincerely, Miss Burnt Out. All right, girl or guy, whoever wrote in. These are always anonymous, by the way, so definitely write in. I feel like a lot of people listening are going to relate to this. I know for myself, I can relate in a sense that I am a people pleaser and I like to say yes to everything because I don't want to upset anyone in my life. So I feel like that might kind of be how you are, is not really wanting to say no. Just, it's hard. It's hard disappointing people. What I will say is eventually you are going to get more and more burnt out and not be able to put in 110% effort into everything that you should be. Because if you're not really into fully everything, how do I put this? If you're feeling burnt out, it's hard to do so many things and give it your all, because at the end of the day, it's not going to benefit you, because you're just going to go home at the end of the day stressed out. And then everything else that you've committed to isn't going to be getting what you could give to it, because, you know, if you're constantly doing so many things and just constantly overworked and overtired, it's just not going to really benefit anyone. And it's really, really, really important to give yourself time to rest. And what I would say is make a list of everything, all of your commitments, even put hang out with friends, because that's something that takes part of your time out of your day. Write down time with yourself, self-care, time if you have a boyfriend, if you have a girlfriend, write that down, time with your family, time doing, if you have a job, like just write all of your commitments down and just kind of prioritize what's most important to you and what's least important to you, and kind of see what you can kind of take out so that you can start forming a healthier routine where you're not going, because you're going to get so burnt out and it's not going to benefit anyone. So that's what I would say to you. Also, don't feel bad having to say no to something because you don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, you know, because they could go find someone else to fulfill that commitment that might be able to put in way more time and energy than you would. And so it would end up benefiting everyone. But also, you don't want to have resentment towards people and let your relationships fail and let, say, schoolwork fail because you're putting time and effort into all these other things. So it's okay to say no. It's a good thing to say no. We can't be doing everything that is asked of us. We're only human. So that's what I would say to you, is it's okay to say no and make a list and just cut out a few things and see how you feel after doing that. So hope that helps. This next one's kind of funny because I've definitely been there before. It says, okay, get ready for a good story. The other night I was drinking, got drunk, and was doing what I do best, calling and texting literally everyone on my contacts list. I was texting one of my really good friends, and we were gossiping about some people that we used to know, you know, as us gals love to do. Well, being the dumb hoe I am, I decided to screenshot part of our text convo and was going to post it to my Instagram close friends. Okay, I see where this is going. I tagged my friend, and long story short, half an hour later realized I posted it to my main story. I was so mortified. What do I do? How can I forget about this? And also, if someone asked me about it, what would I even say? I'm the worst. Yours truly, never drinking again. We've all been there. I've been there. I don't think I've done it to an Instagram before. I've done it plenty of times to my Snapchat main story. What I will first off say is do not feel bad about this, because every single person has been there, done that. We have all made decisions like that. And you can't beat yourself up because it happens to the best of us, honestly. I wouldn't stress about it, because if it was only up for like half an hour, I mean, I feel like I don't really check Instagram stories as much anymore, so it's not that big a deal. Also, like, people I feel like are just so into their own head and their own lives that they're probably just like clicking through, even if they did see it and probably didn't even read it, might not have even understood what was going on and just clicked through. So I honestly would not stress about it at all. And I highly doubt anyone's going to bring it up to you. So I really think you're in the clear. And maybe just next time, if you know you're going to be drinking, I don't know, maybe just be with someone and make sure that you don't post on Instagram, I guess. I don't know. It's always hard because I know when I'm drinking, I'm just so stubborn. Like, if I want to post, I'm posting, you know what I mean? But yeah, I wouldn't feel bad because we've all done it. We've all seen that funny little accidental post on social media. That's one of the dangers of social media. We love social media, but we also hate it because you know how it is. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I wanted to keep it pretty short because I have a lot to do, but I also am going to have a little bit of a longer episode next week because I am going to be having a guest on the podcast. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A kind of session. And I'm really excited. But I just wanted to thank you all again for tuning in, for listening to the podcast. I really hope you all have such an amazing week, and I will see you for next week's podcast episode for some more hot gossip, hot takes, stories, and advice that will have you saying literally what? Bye, guys.